Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. On the line for $20. Keep on playing, but nobody's paid. Hi guys, it's Maggie, Mrs. Calabash. That's Jabor, Montreal. Hi everybody, welcome to our chat tonight. We're going to be making Mexican chicken stroke turkey tortilla. I've got turkey, so we're making turkey. We're going to make these from scratch, and I'm going to make the tortilla. I was going to say messing around all day. I've been experimenting all day, making the base, the homemade flour tortilla. I've made them before many times, but I've never been satisfied with the texture and the taste. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be beaten. So I've been online and I've been reading authentic ways of making tortilla. And surprisingly enough, they've got lard in. I've always used olive oil. But the authentic tortilla have lard and a little baking powder. So that's what we're doing today. It's going to be a bit messy, hence I've got my apron on. And instead of making them in a bowl as normal, rubbing the flour or cutting the flour in, which you can do, I found a method using a food processor. So that's what we're going to do today. I made them this morning, they work really well. So come over to the kitchen with me and let's see where we can go. I'll have to switch the kettle on because they use hot water, not cold water. So let's go over to the kitchen. Ooh. So I just want to switch the kettle on. I'll put it over here. And they're really very, very simple. I'm only going to make 4. The recipe that I'm doing makes between 4 and 6, depending what size you want the tortilla. And so it's just 1.5 cups of flour, just ordinary all-purpose, baking powder, and look, that's all the lard that goes in there, but it makes a big difference. So that's a teaspoonful of lard, and it's 1/2 cup of hot water. Let's just see how. I don't want it boiling, but I just want it hot. Let's have a look. Bring this over here. Measure carefully. Yeah, that's nice and hot. And so I just want to put that round there. Put the water in and no, it's not. There we are. Come on. I never had any trouble with it this morning. There we are. Click it into position. Just a little bit of flour there that hasn't been incorporated. As I say, this is messy. So I've got some extra flour over here, which we're going to put on the table, like that. Let's remove this. And it looks very, very loose, but this is the way it's supposed to look. There we are. Get the spatula round. There's a little bit there that wasn't incorporated. Pull as much off as possible. Now I'm going to fill that with cold water before we go any further. If I put hot water in, then it's going to turn to starch and it's all going to be sticky. There we are. Just wash my hands. Just add a little more flour like this. Now you don't have to knead this much at this stage because the food processor has done the work for you. I could have used a small processor, but I didn't know if it was going to be too small, so this just works and relaxes the flour like that. Now this will, I'm going to make six, I'm going to make 4 out of this. The reason why I've done the recipe for 4 is there's only 2 of us and I will eat them if I make more, and it's not good for me. And so, and they take such a little time to make. I think it's rather nice to make them from fresh. But I have put on the recipe for the chicken tortilla, which will go up online, storing the tortilla. And if you want to make whole wheat tortilla, then rather than put all whole wheat flour in, which is going to make it very heavy, I've suggested using half white and half brown, half whole wheat flour and half plain flour. That's how I make my whole wheat bread, and then it's not as heavy. There we are. You see, they look very tiny, don't they? It hardly seems worth getting everything out, but it really works. So just make a little ball like that, and like we did last week with the flatbreads, we're going to leave them for about 15-30 minutes, just so the flour can relax. There we are. And I'm cooking these today in a cast iron skillet, which I'm going to turn on in a minute because I want it to get nice and hot. And I made some previous, which have been just sitting there relaxing. So see, messy hands. I'm just going to wash my hands. I washed them before we started and I'll wash them again. My poor hands today, I've made 3 different batches, tried 3 different methods. So it's been fun. We've eaten tortilla in many shapes and forms today. There we are. I've lost them. These are what I made previously. And this is a damp tea towel. So you see, I made these earlier and I just want 2. They've joined together. There we are. one. I'll do 2 and then I'll cook the others up when we finish the show. And we'll put those on there to join them. There we are. I'll put them on the top of the microwave out of the way. So we've got 2. Again, just shape them. They're very quick and easy to make. Just pull them up together like that. And we want a nice shape. So we've got the flour on there. I'm not going to waste the flour because it's too precious these days. You need a good floured rolling pin, and I'm going to turn the cast iron pan on now. So just back to the stove, and I'm just going to get it warm. I've turned it down just a little bit and it just can start to heat through. Now we need these, I want these to be about 6 inches. It's roughly an octave. That's the only way I can do it. And that's roughly from there to there on my hands. Again, as last week, just roll out. My rather large rolling pin, everything gets in the way. According to the Mexican writing that I was reading on these, if you roll them out too thickly, then they won't puff up. Oops. We're getting there. There we are, almost there, you see. Needs to go a little bit more that way, a little bit more that way. Don't push and pull like that because you're just going to stretch the flour. Press down with each, each roll, press down like that. That looks just about, let's have a look. Yep, just about. So we'll put that one on there. And whilst that one's cooking, we'll leave this one on the table here. And then we'll clean up the table and we'll make the filling. Use up the flour that's on the table. I don't know, I've never been to Mexico, so I can't say how authentic they are, but they tasted pretty good. There's just a little salt in there. There's a quarter of a, for this amount of flour, there's a quarter of a teaspoon, a quarter of a teaspoonful of baking powder, and an eighth of a teaspoon of salt. So very, very little salt, but it just gives it that little bit of flavour. Reading about these, if you haven't got lard, then you can use shortening, olive oil or butter at a last resort, but they said they don't make them quite so light and fluffy as using the lard. And it's a bit like you making a pork pie pastry, a hot water pastry, because you use hot water and you melt the lard in the hot water for that. So it's probably a similar, yep, similar idea. There we are. So I'm going to put those over there. Get rid of my rolling pin. I'm going to leave this one here till this one's cooked. So let's go back to the stove. It's not quite warm enough yet. Almost there. I found that I needed to clean my cast iron pan. Look, between each one, that's the flour that was left as a residue because you don't have any oil in the pan. Oh, I'm waiting for my composter and I've not got it. Let's have a look. Almost there. Put your hand over the top like this and you can feel when your pan gets warm. There we are, almost there. So I'm not going to overcook these because I want to cook them again when we do the filling. I'm just going to wipe that down. So just let it set like that. Only takes a minute or two. Turn it over, because now if I was going to eat these just as they are without refrying, then I would cook them a little bit longer. But these are actually going to be filled, put back into the pan, and they're going to be cooked in a little oil to crisp on the outside. So you can see how they rise. Just flick it back over again for a minute. It's like all flatbreads. It's like making a naan bread, a flatbread like we made last week. It's the same idea. And yeast being in short supply at the moment, it's a good idea to be able to make something that you can eat as a bread, as a base for a sandwich, without using yeast. Now that's that one cooked. So what I'm going to do, now look, you can see how the flour is in the pan. That would burn. So just give it a quick rub out like that. Get rid of that. There we are. Woohoo! I need this one. Put it in. There we are. Now, if you want to keep these warm whilst they're all cooking, you've got a pile of them and you want them warm, have some damp kitchen paper like that, and then that will keep them warm and keep them soft. So you can have a big pile of nice, soft, warm tortilla. Some soup, sandwiches, you're away. I've got some filling. I've got, we're going to put tomato, cheese and turkey in it, and we've got a salsa, a dip, and some sour cream to go with it. Now you could put cilantro on this, but Derek doesn't like cilantro, so I'm leaving the cilantro out. Now we'll take these back over. I'll let that cool down a minute. I want to clean it out, and we're going to put a little oil in, and we're just going to crisp these over. So let's just put these over here. I need this. Whoops. I've got a bowl. So this is what I use to clean my tables with when I've been making pastry. And it's actually an old printer's ruler. with the font size on it. But use a stiff, I use a palette knife as well, but you see how quickly it can clean the table? Like that. Take a bowl, put it underneath, and then, actually this, I'm going to do it this way because the drawer's in the way. There we are. And there, no mess. No mess on the floor. But you can't say that about me. I was working at, I was cooking school coordinator at Vanier in Orleans, and I had a manager, and she came to me one day. She said, "Yes, Maggie," she said, "you're not like one of those coordinators that doesn't sort of get herself dirty." She said, "You're in there." And she said, "Whenever I see you," because we wore black overalls, chef's jacket. She said, "It's always got a little bit of flour somewhere." Because I was always baking, either teaching the children or doing something. So just make sure your table's cleaned. Put that back, wash my hands, and now we're ready to do the filling. I've got cheese. I like a nacho cheese to do this, but we hadn't got any nacho cheese today. So I've got a little mozzarella in there, some cheddar cheese. I'm going to liven it up with put a few peppers in with it when I put the cheese on. Tomatoes. A little chopped turkey. You can have chicken. You could even have cook some ground beef, some nice spicy ground beef, and use that as well. And so now there's two ways of cooking these. One way is because we're only going to fill it half full. One way is actually putting the cheese on and letting it cook and then add the other filling. But I'm likely to make a mess doing that. I can see me getting into trouble. So I'm going to put some cheese on and mix the two cheeses together. Now, just remember, we've got to lift this, so don't overfill it. So this is enough cheese for 4. So remember, we're only going to do 2. Let's put just a little. Let's not mess around. Now, this is we both like spicy food. So if you don't like spicy food, leave this out. I'm leaving out the cilantro because, as anybody who knows me knows, Derek doesn't like cilantro. So we're leaving out the cilantro. But the nice thing is that you can make your own, and you've got people, you've got somebody for a meal that you know quite well, or if you don't, it's a good icebreaker. Get them to fill their own and cook them. Slice the tomato thinly. I think that's, you see, we've got to be able to turn it like that. Got to be able to turn it. So I'm just going to clean out I'm going to leave those there for a minute, clean out my skillet, and we're going to put a little oil in the base of the skillet and just cook these until the cheese has melted and it's all nice and crispy on the outside. So let's go back to the pan, back to the stove. Let's just wipe that out. There we are. a little olive oil, not too much in there. There we are. I love my cast iron pan, but it's so heavy. I must be getting old. I sort of, ooh. But they're great for even heat. Not quite hot enough. Not quite there yet. We don't want to put the tortilla, in there until the fat oil gets hot, because it will just go into the pastry, and we don't want that. We want it to be nice and crispy. Almost there. One thing to remember about olive oil, you can't bring it up to such a high temperature as you can canola oil. It's a low temperature. There we are. So saying, our chief chef for the cooking schools, Tom, his first generation Canadian, his parents are Greek. And I was saying this about the olive oil, and he was there I think he was in the room, he was watching one of my classes, and he said, I'm Greek, we only use olive oil for frying, so, but it was recommended that that you don't use the olive oil. It turns cancerous. This is what they say. I don't know if it's been proved or not, but in the cooking schools we never did. That looks as though, see, they're nice and crispy. Ooh, lovely. Yay! Turn it down just a little bit. Almost there. Almost there. There we are. I think that is ready. Yes. Let's just check that one. I'm going to give that just another second or two. I can actually hear the fire siren going. I hope everything's okay. There we are. Let's push that back. Everything's switched off. I can't put the fan on because it makes too much noise, but let's just put that back away from the heat. Everything's turned off. And look, we have got 2 tortilla. So, supper time, guys. Supper time. I'm not sure if it's the fire siren or the police. Let's just clean up. So let's put some more tomato on there. So I would serve these if I'm doing a lunch on a nice, I would have a plate full of a bed of lettuce on there, and we've got some guacamole. Ooh. Salsa. a little dip. This is a corn dip. And we mustn't forget the sour cream. Plenty of sour cream. And that is the Mexican and chicken tortilla. So I'm going to take that back to the table. We have 2 plates. Derek can have one for supper. He wouldn't have any tea actually, he wouldn't have any earlier supper because he wanted to save room for these. I was good. I had some soup, so I would only have one. Oh, I can't get out. I forget. So, there we are. I'll just use a coaster because it's a little bit hot, and then those are ready to dig in. I would, if I was doing for more. Hi Eve, hi Heather. I hope you're enjoying the show. I can't see when I'm back there. So I would make a pile, or what I would do if I've got soft ones and not doing the crispy ones, then I would bring a big plate, a pile. If I've got people in, have a whole selection of meats. Either I'd have some chicken, maybe some steak, steak strips, vegetarian, because I have friends that are vegetarian, and let everybody make their own. And then if they wanted to finish them off like this, then they could do. So thank you very much for watching. Please stay safe, social distancing. I'm getting cabin fever. I don't know about you. And next week, we've got a special surprise for you. So please watch me on Friday at 2 p.m. Please like and send it to a friend. And thank you very much for watching. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hi, I'm nickels and some dimes. 20 bucks. 20 bucks. Linda, I'm in dire need of your help. Pay the rent, not the money that you spent. Can't get by on 20 bucks. 20 bucks. 20 bucks. Keep in mind for 20.